Hi, I'm Sam. I'm the Clinical Director here at Standing in the Gap. For those of you not come across us, Standing in the Gap is what we call an early intervention mental health charity. So we support preschool and primary age children managing the big emotions of fear, anxiety, anger and grief. Our mission is to promote emotional well-being in children by providing tools and support. What we're going to do now is we've got another video in our Understanding Your Children series, and we're going to be looking at self-esteem and giving praise. We are a small mental health charity, as I mentioned, and any support you can give us is massively appreciated. You can text SITG5 to 70085 to make us a £5 donation, or there's various ways on our website www.sitgap.org that you can support us. Please do consider making a donation if you found this resource useful, as it does enable us to go on and make further resources and hopefully meet our mission of supporting children to improve emotional well-being. Thank you. So in this session, we're going to consider what we mean by self-esteem. The evidence tells us that children with high self-esteem don't get bullied and don't join gangs, so we know it's important. We're going to look at what we can do to raise our children's self-esteem, and then I'm going to do a section on looking at how we can give useful praise. What do we mean by praise, and in what way can we do it that doesn't promote anxiety? We do have an accompanying worksheet to this recording, so please do download this and work through it with your child. So what do we mean by self-esteem? It's actually quite a complicated concept, and I'm going to use our elves to help me explain it. If you've not come across them, we have our physical elf here, who is green and helps us understand the physiology and biochemistry of our emotions. And we have our mental elf, who is purple, who helps us review our feelings and emotions and how they work. And both of them together help us explain difficult concepts in ways that we can understand. So we know that our self-identity is made up of two parts. We have our physical traits, I see from our physical elf here, and that's like whether we're a boy or a girl, how old we are, what do we look like, what's our hair colour, our eye colour, how tall are we, what colour's our skin. All those things make up our physical traits. And then we have our psychological traits, which is where we can see our mental elf. And this is about what we like and what we dislike. So our self-identity is made up of the two parts, physical traits and psychological traits. And self-esteem is the value that we give to this. It's about the value and worth of how we view ourselves and how we feel about ourselves. So we've said that self-esteem is about the value that we add to our physical and our psychological traits. To help our children raise their self-esteem, we need to unpick this with them. We need to help them understand what are their physical traits and what are their psychological traits. So physically, if you look on our worksheet, there's a whole thing you can run through. What are their positive traits? What are they good at physically? But also, you've got great long legs. I love the way your smile crinkles. I like your freckles. Your hair's a gorgeous colour. Lots of positives. It's really important, I think, that we give our children as many positives as possible. We live in a very strange world with some pretty interesting ideas on what beautiful is, and we really need to be championing our children and really encouraging them on their physical traits, on how they're doing. So yeah, work through the worksheet, look at what their positive physical traits are, bearing in mind they're going to change, but look at the positives. We can then move on to the psychological. What do they like? What do they dislike? What's their favourite food? What's their favourite colour? What film do they like? What group do they like? What game do they like playing? All sorts of different things. And again, there's a section to go through. Children who are able to articulate what makes them up, so their traits, really helps with raising the self-esteem. So it's quite a useful exercise to do, going through likes and dislikes. And quite a useful one to do for adults as well, to have a look what we think. One of the other things you can do is allow choices. Choices, it doesn't need to be complicated. It can be a choice between this or this, whether that's what you have for breakfast, what meal you eat on a weekend, what film you watch. Get into the process of encouraging your children to make choices. The more choices they make, the less scared they get about decision making. Sometimes it's not always about the final decision. You may not like jelly for pudding or whatever else, but it's about encouraging them to make those choices. The more frequently we make decisions, the more adept we get at actually doing it. So do allow choices, but don't make them too complicated. There's an interesting piece of research out saying if you give 6 or more choices, that actually stresses people out more. And I can understand that. I don't think I'd like 6 choices for breakfast, but a couple I can definitely cope with. So allow choice. Model good self-esteem. It's really important as the big people in our children's life that we're happy and content in who we are. Are we happy in our skin? Most of us could say, oh, I wish I was fitter, slimmer, earned a bit more money, was a little less stressed, all of those things. But is that impacting on how we see ourselves? Are we constantly putting ourselves down? Are we negative about things? How we view ourselves impacts on how our children. So it's worth thinking, do I need to do this exercise? Do I need to look at what my positive physical traits are and what my likes and dislikes are? And actually, what value do I have of myself? Because if I want my children to do well in this, I need to be modelling it. One of the things we have, which is great, I love these are our compliment stars. You can buy these on our website, in our shop, and the aim of these is that you have a selection of stars on a string here, and what you can do is that you sit down and you write things that are complimentary about that child. You do 1 set per child, so if you've got more than 1 child, you probably need to get more than 1 set, and have a good think. What's some real character positives about that child? You know, Abby is great, she's really kind. Matt's really encouraging. Sophie's very good at drawing. You know, find out some real positives that you can put in on what they can do. I'll come on in a little bit to talk about praise, but lots of real personalised character things that you're great at this, you're good at this, whatever they are. You can link in the physical and the psychological traits, but make these as individual as you can and as positive as you can. The aim with these is that you put them somewhere they can see them. So where they clean their teeth, in their bedroom, on the fridge, doesn't matter, but somewhere where they can see them. So the next time your child has a massive wobble and says, I can't do maths, I don't understand it, I'm rubbish, I can't do, you can say to them, go and have a look at the stars, go and have a look at them, and there's lots of things you can do, there's lots of things that you are good at, so don't lose sight of that. And that's really important. Personally, I think all parents should have one of these and have them on the back of their bedroom door about their good traits for parenting, because parenting is a ridiculously hard job, comes with least instructions than anything else, and we often give ourselves a really hard time. So I think if parents had these, the next time we go, oh, I'm a terrible parent, I want to sell my child on eBay, or whatever it is that you're feeling, you can go and look at these and think, no, do you know what? I'm doing okay. I have got some real positives. So these are a really simple but very positive way of individually encouraging your child and yourself on what you can do well and what are your good character traits. One of the other things you can do is catch your child doing something good. Now this can be a real challenge depending on the type of day. Some days you'll have days where you think, all I've done is say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, please do that. Can you do that? I've asked you to do that. Please, when you pick up that, please can we get in the car? Let's get in the car. And you've asked them about 400 times every time to do anything. And you're just feeling a little bit invisible and a little bit frustrated. Now the thing is, we all respond to positives, and we actually respond to a little bit of positivity better than being nagged at. So sometimes it's about that creative way of thinking, what have they done positive? You know, thank you for picking your shoes up. Thank you for getting in the car, despite the fact it took you 25 times. What I would say is sarcasm is wasted on children. Not always very helpful, so don't get into patterns of being very sarcastic with your kids, it's not going to help. But catch them doing something good, find something positive that you can say, well done, that was good, and what you'll see is you'll see that change in focus. They'll want to do more of the things they're getting praised for, and hopefully you'll start to see a decrease. Not a magic wand, our children are human beings, but actually catching your child doing something good is a really useful way of raising their self-esteem. If I worked in a job where all I had was negatives, I would not want to stay. If I live in a family where all I get is negatives, that's going to be really hard, and that's going to knock my value and my self-esteem on how I see myself. So really important, many positives as you can. Verbal encouragement is really useful. One of the other things to consider is they're going to grow and they're going to change. We talked about the physical and the psychological traits as part of this model, and we know they change. We know that our children are not the same at 3 as they are at 11 or at 17 or at different ages. They grow, they change, they have lots of different things. Their brains develop. Our brains go through 2 significant brain growth things. So the first 3 years is an awful lot of wiring and laying down of the pathways in our brains. They grow phenomenally. And then at puberty, our brains regrow and reprune and redevelop. It means that they're very good at growing and learning new things and new information, which is why children can take on new concepts. It can just be a little bit of a difficult process. So allow your children to grow and change. Don't expect if they like eggs that they're always going to like their eggs done that way. They might want to try things. Give them choices, give them options. But as much as you can, please do try and give them some positives. So if we just looked at a few things: understanding their traits, allowing choices, conversations about their physical bits and traits, modelling good self-esteem, looking at how we can use the compliment stars, which are really positive, catch them doing something good, and allow them to grow and change. So we also want to look at how we can give useful praise. How can we give constructive praise that is helpful and doesn't raise anxiety? Now, there was a study that was done a few years ago by a psychologist called Carol Dweck. You may have heard of her, you may not have done. What she did is she took a group of children, she split them into 2 groups. So one group she praised for being intelligent, and one group she praised for effort and hard work. And they did this for about 2 weeks. So the ones that were intelligent were told, oh, very clever, very, very intelligent, you're very clever, ever so clever, well done, you're so clever, so impressed, you're all very clever. And they were repeatedly told this. For the second group, they talked about effort and hard work. Oh, you are trying, well done, ever so good, good effort, good trying. I can see you working really hard, well done. So lots of praise for 2 weeks. At the end of this, they give them a choice. Told you psychologists like choices. So they give them 2 choices on doing a test, an easy test or a hard test. And what was fascinating was that the results from this are exactly the same no matter how many times they ran this process, with lots of different socioeconomic groups, different cultures, all sorts of different things, and they found exactly the same. In that, the children who were praised for being intelligent, 2/3 of them took the easy test and only 1/3 of them took the hard test, whereas this group that were praised for effort and hard work, 90% took the hard test. Now what that shows us is that intelligence was a variable that children felt they couldn't control. They didn't understand it. It was fluffy, it was strange, it was out there. What did it mean? Was it something you could achieve or not? So if you were praised for being clever, that actually raised stress and raised anxiety, and they didn't want to fail, so they took the easy test. For children who were praised for their effort and hard work, they understood a lot more whether they'd put the effort in. So they were much more willing and felt much more measured to be able to gauge, were they ready for the hard test? And we know that. We know our children are very aware. Did they do their homework? Did it take 5 minutes? Did it done as quick as possible? Finish the maths, thank you very much. You know, was the colouring the quickest thing you've ever seen? Or did they spend ages working through it and spending time? Effort and hard work is a variable that we can manage. And out of this became a concept which is called the growth mindset. And that is that our brain is a muscle, and it's a bit like any other muscle, that the more we work it, the better we are at understanding it and the better we're doing it. If I'm not a very good runner and I practice running, I'll get better. Might never be Olympic standard, and that's okay, but I get better at it. And my brain is the same. I can use my brain and I can train my brain and I can help it. And what the growth mindset does is it stops it from being a, oh, I'm stupid, to, here's something I need to understand. Here's a concept I need to get my head round. A lot of the primary schools and secondary schools are now using it, and they're talking about failing. And failing being the first attempt in learning. That saying mistakes are okay, it's good to try things, and it doesn't matter if we get them wrong. It's about saying we can grow parts of our brain, and actually our brains continue to function and continue to grow. We used to think in brain development that we hit a ceiling at a certain age and you couldn't learn anything. Can't teach an old dog new tricks was one of the comments. Well, what actually we know is that our brain continues to grow and prune and have the ability to learn things, which is why you can teach your granny to use email or Zoom or whatever it is you've been trying. Can be a bit challenging, but actually they can learn new skills, they can learn new techniques, and so can children. Children's brains do not fully develop until they're between 25 and 30 years old. So there's lots of opportunities for them to grow and develop and do things. So when we're talking of praise, make sure that it's constructive. Praise them for effort and hard work, because that's a variable they can do. Don't praise them for being clever or being intelligent, because that just increases anxiety. So to summarise, we've looked at what we mean by self-esteem, we've looked at our pictures with our elves, so we've looked at self-identity and our physical and our psychological traits, and we've looked at self-esteem as the value that we add to these. We know that a high self-esteem in children stops them being bullied and joining gangs, so we know it's an important concept to raise with our children. We've broken down and looked at how we raise our children's self-esteem through a whole series of different measures, and we've considered how it's useful to give constructive praise that doesn't increase anxiety and actually helps our children function. As I mentioned, there is a worksheet that accompanies this talk. Please do download it, please do fill it in with your children, and I do hope it's really useful and that we actually are able to raise your children's self-esteem. Thank you.